What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about 4 reasons why Christians should be fasting. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today we're talking about fasting and should Christians fast. So if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Let's hop right into this video. Many in today's culture are not really fasting. You don't hear about a lot of Christians fasting anymore. I think there's a reflection on my glasses, so I think I'm gonna take them off. All right, going to Matthew chapter 9, verse 14, starting out there. It says, "Then the disciples of John came to him," they came to Jesus, "saying, 'Why do we and the Pharisees fast often, but your disciples do not fast?' And Jesus said to them, 'Can the friends of the bridegroom mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and they will fast.' And then they will fast." All right, next we're gonna go to Matthew chapter 6. And I kind of want to preface this too with Matthew chapter 6 because it also talks about praying in secret and fasting in secret and not making it look like you're fasting just to be rewarded openly by other people. Matthew chapter 6. "Take heed that you do not do your charitable deeds before men to be seen by them. Otherwise, you have no reward from your Father in heaven." We're going to skip down to 16 when it talks about fasting. Verse 16 says, "Moreover, when you fast, do not be like the hypocrites, with a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear to men that they are fasting." So they make it look like they're fasting. "Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that you do not appear to men to be fasting, but to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees it in secret will reward you openly." And the verses after that actually go on to talk about not storing up your treasures on earth, but laying up your treasures and storing them up in heaven. That verse kind of prefaces this whole thing. So when I was reading that, if you notice, it doesn't say if you pray and if you fast. It says when you pray and when you fast. So it's expected as Christians. 3 things we are supposed to be doing as Christians are praying, giving, and fasting. Those are vital things in our walk with God. Again, it does not say if you fast, if you pray. It says when you fast and when you pray. So I wanted to go over that, the fact that it says when and not if. And I also want to go over the fact that it talks about when you are fasting, you're not supposed to be sad and down and, "Oh, I really wish I could have an ice cream right now. Man, like a Coke would be really good." And if you're on a diet, it's totally different. You know, when you're talking to your friends, "Man, I could really go for like a Mountain Dew right now. I could really go for a donut." That's different from when you're fasting. When you're fasting, you're not supposed to be like acting like you're fasting, telling everybody you're fasting. When you're fasting, it's supposed to be unto God, not unto men. You're not supposed to go around and be like, "Oh, I'm fasting." It's supposed to be to your Father who is in the secret place. The first reason why Christians should fast is for breakthrough, a prayer request, or to prepare for something. Jesus spent 40 days and nights in the wilderness, spending time alone with God, preparing for God's work that he had to do on earth. So before he began to do God's work on earth, he went to the wilderness. He got alone with God. He went and fasted for 40 days and nights and prayed. If you read throughout the Old Testament, it talks about all these different men and women of God who fasted for things, who fasted for prayer requests. Ezra called for a corporate fast in the Bible to seek deliverance and protection for the Israelites. It talks about fasting in the book of Esther. King David fasted. Google fasting. Google scriptures on fasting. Google who fasted in the Bible, and it will give you so many scripture verses and so many people throughout the Bible that fasted. If you look at Daniel in the Bible, he fasted 21 days to receive an answer from God to his prayer request. If you read in Daniel chapter 10, verse 3, it says, "I ate no pleasant food, no meat or wine came into my mouth, nor did I anoint myself at all till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled." So Daniel fasted and prayed for 21 days for an answer to his prayer. And on the 21st day, he got it. So I encourage you, if you have a prayer request, if you're trying to get a breakthrough, fast, pray, get on your face, get on your knees, and pray for that answer. Study that scripture, that passage of scripture from Daniel talking about his fast and receiving his answer. Reason number 2 that Christians should be fasting. I once heard a preacher say that fasting helps us dethrone King Stomach. Fasting is not easy. It afflicts and crucifies our flesh. It's getting your flesh out of the way, so every time that you feel hungry or your stomach starts to rumble, you go to God in prayer instead. And the world would think that's crazy. They'd be like, well, your stomach is rumbling, you're hungry, why don't you just go eat? We live in a culture that just indulges in food. We need to have more of a spirit of abstinence, abstaining from things, in a culture where the spirit is usually like more. So again, don't expect it to be easy. When you start fasting, if you're fasting for a long period of time, especially like a 21-day fast, a 40-day fast, your body is gonna start ridding of toxins that have been built up. And so you may get a headache the first couple days. You may have lots of cravings the first week, but they say 21 days makes a habit. If you have a problem with like gluttony or overeating, you know, fasting is not a diet. It is not a diet, it is a biblical concept. But it can help dethrone King Stomach and get our flesh out of the way, so that every time we go to eat nasty foods, we go and pray to God instead. And drink lots of water if you are fasting. Lots and lots of water, because you will be detoxing, so it'll help your body flush out all those toxins. It does help your health. It does improve your health. Even though it's not a diet, it's not for that purpose, it does help improve your health. Number 3, to get away from addictions. Have you ever met a person who was addicted to pornography, who was addicted to their smartphone, who was addicted to drugs, who was addicted to alcohol, who was addicted to insert whatever here? That was regularly, I can't really say that right now, but regularly fasting and praying. Have you ever met a person who was addicted to insert here, who was regularly fasting and regularly praying? So if you are struggling with something, if you're struggling getting over something, an addiction, then I highly suggest that you get in prayer, you repent, and fast. Somebody messaged me when I posted about fasting on my story. They made a good point. You know, in the Bible, it never mentions any kind of fasting other than fasting from certain foods, or all food and just water. And nowadays, if your addiction is more like towards electronics or something like that, and you don't really have a problem with food, and let's say you start fasting from certain foods, but you're really not spending more time with God because you're still addicted to, let's say, your smartphone, then how are you really fasting per se? You know what I'm saying? Fasting is getting your flesh out of the way and just getting closer to God. Fast from that too. Maybe fast from your smartphone and certain foods. Dethrone King Stomach and dethrone King Smartphone. The spirit wars against the flesh, and the flesh wars against the spirit. So continually giving into the things of the flesh, if you're not walking in the spirit, it's going to be easier to do those things. That's why we have to walk in the spirit, so we do not fulfill the lust of the flesh. And I believe fasting helps you to walk in the spirit, to be more sensitive to the things of the spirit. And this brings me right into my last point, which number 4 is growing closer to God and being more sensitive to his spirit. So I'm going to read this scripture verse from Galatians chapter 6, starting at verse 7, and it says, "Do not be deceived, God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life." Fasting tunes out all these other distractions. That's why I said it's a good idea a lot of times when you're fasting to take even a break from social media as well. It makes you more in tune with the things of God, the things of the Spirit. 2 things that fasting is not. It's not a diet, and it's not for just certain people, certain Christians. It's for everybody. Jesus said when you fast and when you pray, And he was talking about the disciples and how when the bridegroom leaves, they're gonna fast and they're gonna cry out to God. Fasting is refraining from certain foods or food to unclutter your spirit, to refocus on God. It's for a spiritual purpose. You know, and I think the devil does not want us to fast. I mean, why would he want us to fast? Why would he want us to dethrone King's stomach? Why would he want us to refocus our attention on the Father? Think about it. Like, you hardly ever hear churches teaching on fasting. I mean, who wants to fast? Who wants to go and give up ice cream and donuts and whatever else we eat? I think I just mentioned those two because all the time because I love those things. But who wants to give up that stuff? Who wants to give up bread or garlic bread or pasta or any of those things that like make us gain weight? Who wants to give up that stuff? I believe that gluttony is one of the most overlooked sins in the church today. Overindulging in food. And God gave us food to take pleasure in. You know, he could have made it to where it didn't taste like anything, but he was so gracious and he blessed us with flavor and food tastes amazing. We're not supposed to abuse anything that he has given us. I thought this was really interesting. I asked you guys on my story on Instagram some questions about fasting. By the way, if you're not following me, here's a plug. Follow me on Instagram so you can be involved in stuff like this. I asked, do you think Christians should fast? 80% said yes, 20% said I'm not sure. I asked, has your church ever taught on fasting? 67% of people said yes, 33% of people said no. I asked your thoughts on fasting, and I'm gonna read some of these. Somebody said, it's necessary. It helps kill the flesh and focus on the spiritual. I feel more spiritually awake. Somebody else said, fasting is like a weapon that accelerates spiritual growth. Jesus fasted 40 days and we should live by his life. And they also continued on, it talks about how it brings you closer to the Lord. Somebody else said that they heard that it's very useful before making big decisions. And that's a great point. You know, if you have a big decision that you have to make, go on a fast, go on a couple-day fast, go on a week fast. Whatever you decide, that's between you and the Lord, but write your prayer requests down on a list before you go on a fast and pray for those every single day. I've done it before, and I've seen most of that stuff come to pass. Somebody else said that God said that some things are able to be done by prayer and fasting only, and that's right, because it talks about this kind goes not out but by prayer and fasting. So I'm going to read that scripture. I'm actually just going to summarize it, but in Matthew chapter 17, the disciples were trying to cast out a demon, and they couldn't do it. But Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of him. The disciples came privately to Jesus, and they were like, why could we not do that? Why could we not cast out that demon? And Jesus said in Matthew chapter 17, verses 21, says, however, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting. That kind does not go out but by prayer and fasting. So it is important that we are prayed up and we are fasted up and we are studied up. Another one, it's a way to say no to your flesh so your spirit can grow stronger because it requires discipline. Not everybody wakes up and they're like, hey, I want to fast today. It requires discipline. It is good to fast for purposes of letting God shape and mold us without distraction. And somebody else did bring up the fact that, you know, be careful that you're not like pushing your body too much, that you like end up in the hospital or something. Be smart about it. You know, talk to your doctor first if you have to. Don't do anything that's gonna hospitalize you or make you super sick. I heard a pastor say recently that he fasts every Thursday and he just does 2 meals. He'll fast from breakfast and lunch, and then he'll eat dinner with his family at night. So he'll just fast those 2 meals of the day, those 2 first meals of the day, obviously drinking only water. That way he doesn't drag his family into his fast too, if that makes sense. Like, he gets home from work and he's able to eat with his family and have that family time. I ask you guys, why do you think churches aren't teaching on fasting? One was because there is sacrifice, cleansing, and humility involved, which most people don't desire. Somebody says it's because churches are seeker sensitive. Another response, fear of looking extreme. One girl said because no one likes to hear that they have to put down their flesh. For the sake of being relevant, it's something that has been put on the back burner. That was your guys' thoughts. Y'all, let me know your thoughts on this video and on fasting in the comments below. I love having discussion. I love reading your comments. So make sure you don't exit this video without leaving a comment. Guys, I have a Patreon, so if you feel led to support my channel and my ministry monthly, then that link is down below. I also have another option for a one-time donation. Also, leave any video ideas that you may have in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I love you guys. God bless you guys. Keep looking to Jesus. Remember that everything is gonna be all good, and peace out.
Every little thing, everything will be alright.
For this fourth point, and it's from Galatians. So I'm gonna read this